I've made over 7 million in cash at 25 without having a product and received offers to sell my company to billion-dollar private equity. But before that happened, I went through years of testing different business models, where the only one of them completely outperformed everything else I've done and made me millions in cash. To save you time, I analyzed the top 7 business models you can start, ranking them using a 40-point scoring system that analyzes anything from how scalable the business is, profitability, how much money and skills you need, operating costs, how big the market is, competition, and if the business is actually sellable. On our list with the lowest score of 23 out of 40 is e-commerce, and everyone thinks this is the easiest way to make money online. But the reality is that the profit margins of this business model, usually they are between 10 to 25% at scale, unless you have like some large personal brand, like maybe like a Rihanna or something similar, that where you can like increase the profitability. Then the customer acquisition ads are getting more expensive every year, so it just becomes harder and harder to compete. Then the next issue is ad accounts. You constantly getting restricted and always have some issues with regulations and tracking. And the competition is absolutely brutal. You can go on Facebook now and click on some random e-commerce ad, and the next time you visit, you will see the full timeline of that exact same product or type of product from different companies. So I've built an e-commerce business when I was younger, and here is what nobody tells you. Even if you are doing 1 million a month, most of that money goes straight to inventory, ads, or the fulfillment of the actual product. Let's break down the score. In terms of scalability, I scored it as high because you can expand internationally. It's typically a very scalable business model. It's not very high because you may face inventory and logistic challenges when you are scaling. Then in terms of the profitability, typically in teens, as I already mentioned, due to customer acquisition cost and inventory. When we are speaking in terms of the profitability, wait until I show you the first business model where you can make 7 figures with only 2 to 3 clients and no employees. So we will go through that shortly, but let's continue on e-commerce. Initial investment, a moderate, can be low for dropshipping, but a high for businesses holding in inventory or manufacturing products. Skills required for this specific business model, typically like media buying is the main skills you need, and obviously inventory management and cash flow management, like in any other business. In terms of the operating cost, it's typically high, especially because of the inventory and shipping and the customer support, and you have to pre-buy all this stuff, right? Market size, obviously large in most e-commerce verticals, so that's great. Competition, as I mentioned already, very, very high in most products. Exit of business, obviously e-commerce businesses as some of the most attractive for acquisition, so that's great for this specific business model. Next up, we have 4 businesses that have scored 25 out of 40, and the first of them we will go through is the coaching and consulting business model. While everyone with any kind of success today is becoming a coach, while it can be highly profitable, it's only 6th on our list. So let's look at why. So in terms of the scalability, is obviously limited because it's tied to your personal time. Profitability, as I mentioned, is high profit because it's typically high ticket price for this coaching or services program. The initial investment, it can be bootstrapped, so there is typically no investment initially. Skills required, obviously it requires your specialized skills in the specific area that you are coaching people on. In terms of the operating costs, there are typically no operating costs to run the business really. You only invest once you are really scaling to like marketing, maybe some software, and if you have it structured that way, maybe having some customer success managers. Market size, while the coaching as an industry can be large, typically your specific category that you are consulting and coaching on is typically small. So that's why I gave it moderate category. In terms of the competition, typically very high because there is a lot of people who teach people how to become coaches and consultants. So it's becoming more saturated over time. And exit of the business is typically very difficult to sell because it's tied to you or your personal brand or your expertise. Next up, also scoring 25 out of 40 is done for you service business, and this is where you do the work other businesses either don't want to do or don't know how to do. So let's check the scores. So in terms of the scalability, it's typically limited because the more clients you get, the more team members you need for them to deliver. In terms of the profitability, it's moderate to high profit. The main expense will be your team in most cases. It really also highly depends on your pricing and what you sell these services for. Initial investments, typically low, can be obviously bootstrapped because you get clients first before you start spending money. In terms of the skills required, obviously you need the specialized skills in the actual service that you are delivering. So there is like niche expertise, maybe some product and task management, like team management and these kind of things. Obviously sales, like done for your service businesses, are typically heavily dependent on having a good sales team. Then operating costs, moderate, the highest expense for you will be team, which is employees, contractors, or maybe a little bit of software there. Then also it depends like what type of service business you have, right? What you're actually delivering. Market size, moderate, typically focus on B2B. Competition high, especially in popular services category niches like appointment setting, sales, paid ads, and similar. And exit of the business is typically difficult to sell. Again, depends on what type of business it is, but it's typically difficult because it heavily relies on the owner itself. Next, we have growth consulting. It scores also 25 out of 40. This is typically where you advise companies on how to grow faster or more efficiently. So let's break it down exactly as we analyze it. Scalability, typically very limited because growth is often limited by the founder expertise itself, because you are the growth consultant yourself. How you can actually scale this is the typical business model like McKinsey or Bain, where you give partnerships in your consulting firm and they become co-owner and own equity. So they are incentivized to grow and help you grow this consulting firm. But this is people business. You need to hire really high quality talent. And all of these large consulting companies, they hire from Harvard and similar universities where there is a lot of talented people. So it's hard for you to compete in this vertical, especially for things like this. But let's continue. In terms of the profitability, high profit can be highly profitable due to high hourly rates or revenue share fees. So that's great. Initial investment obviously can be bootstrapped. There is typically no initial investment. You can start consulting someone, so you don't have to invest in anything. Skills required, you really need to be expert in whatever you are consulting on. So you really need to have industry expertise. Marketing and sales expertise is obviously really helpful here, and actually actionable strategy and execution. Then operating costs, obviously very low, so it will be typically admin team if you are at like smaller scale. Then market size typically focuses on digital businesses, so let's categorize it into the moderate type of stuff. Competition also moderate, depends on your skill set and vertical you operate in. And exit of the business, typically very difficult to sell these type of things, specifically for the reason that I mentioned already. It depends heavily on you as the founder. Moving up our list is a traditional marketing agency model, scoring 25 out of 40. And this is particularly interesting because it was probably the most hyped business model on social media over the last 3 years. And everyone's teaching it, but let's look at the real numbers. So in terms of the scalability, it's obviously limited because it requires hiring and training new team members if you want to really grow your agency, which can be challenging if you want to maintain the quality of the services. If you look at the large agencies, all of them service enterprise clients and they have big teams, right? What's the issue here? The most people focus on the local businesses and they have a small team or no team, and they charge 1K to 3K retainers for this type of stuff, right? So let's move to the profitability. It's typically moderate to high profit type of business, so that's great. It's cash flowing business. The main expense will be team here. Initial investments, low, obviously can be bootstrapped. You can get clients first before you start spending any money on team or software. Skill required. Typically the skill you need is digital marketing, some project management, or obviously sales, because you have to sell your services. So we categorize it the moderate score. Operating costs, we gave it low because it's your biggest score will, cost will be team, but you don't need them initially. So you can kind of operate as solopreneur, and then maybe some software. Market size, you can do marketing for almost every business, but we still categorize it as a moderate market size because it's focused typically on small local businesses. Then the competition, this is obviously the category in terms of extremely high competition. There are many freelancers and agencies offering similar services, and it's very oversaturated type of business model. And exit of the business is typically difficult to sell, but it can be sold to large agencies or marketing firms if it's not reliant on you as a founder. That's why our next model, SaaS, software as a service, scores significantly higher at 27 out of 40, ranking second on our list. And this is where the real scalability starts to show up, but it becomes with its own set of challenges. So let's check the scores. In terms of the scalability, as I mentioned, is very high. Once the software is developed, you can serve additional customers with minimal incremental cost. So that's very great. It's one of the most scalable businesses in the world. Profitability also, there is typically a high gross profit margin in most software categories, but also there is risk of not having product market fit. Initial investments, this is one of the businesses where you need to invest money typically before you start actually to make money, because it costs you to develop the product, to develop the software, develop the infrastructure, and also initial marketing, because most software products are selling for lower pricing or low pricing, or low ticket pricing. There are some enterprise deals, but if we talk generally, it will be like typically in hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars per year. Then skills required, obviously you need highly specialized skills to build this actual software, or you hire the team, but you still need the skill to actually create a really good product. So their skill is software and product development, and then customer support and marketing. Marketing, mainly customer support, can be automated with AI and agents. So it will become easier, but you still need these skills. Operating costs, obviously moderate, because there is always ongoing development team. Server costs that you have to pay, obviously marketing and additional software that you use to actually have your company functional. Market size, we can categorize it as moderate or high, but it's typically focused on the best software companies typically focus on the B2B market. In terms of the competition, also high. There is software for almost everything nowadays, but still you can find categories where you can win. Exit of business, this is one of the most attractive businesses to sell. So obviously attractive for acquisition by larger tech companies or private equity firms due to scalable business model. Finally, we reached out number one on our list with 35 out of 40 points, the lead generation platform. And this is what I personally use to make 7 million in cash. And it's the same model that companies like LendingTree, for example, use to generate 670 million a year, or Credit Karma to hit 1.6 billion in revenue. So let's break down the score. In terms of the scalability, I categorize it as very high, and that's mainly because we focus on industries that are very large. For example, financial services, home services, and similar industries. There are hundreds of billions of market value in these industries, if not trillions. Then the profitability, typically moderate to high profit. Revenue and profit depends on lead quality and the volume you generate. Also in what verticals you operate and what country you have the lead generation platform in. Then initial investment, it's typically low, let's call it $0 to $300, and obviously can be bootstrapped, because you can generate and get lead buyers to buy leads from you before you start building anything and starting generating leads. Then skill required, let's call it moderate, because you need to have some skill with maybe paid ads or media buying or some business development to actually onboard these lead buyers. So there is moderate type of skill that you need. Operating costs low. Typically, you don't need to have a team, but once you scale, if you want to go beyond 8 figures to 9 figures, then you will need some team and some software. But it can be run very lean. For example, the lead gen platform I built, I grew it to 2.1 million a year in revenue with no employees or contractors. Then after I started hiring people. Then in terms of the market size, is very large, because you are targeting broad industries or demographics that are applied to large number of people and the population. And then the competition, moderate, depends per vertical and country where you operate. So how you can differentiate is typically through niche and focusing on the lead quality. And exit of the business, because I received offers to sell my platform Basically, it's sellable asset, so it's attractive for acquisition, and typically you can get acquired by companies who operate in the same vertical and acquire you as a customer acquisition engine. So for example, insurance company comes to you if you generate like a lot of insurance leads and they acquire you as their customer acquisition engine, or it can be by private equity. And this is also why lead generation platform companies are getting acquired for hundreds of millions in this space. So for example, Assurance IQ sold for 2.3 billion to Prudential, as exactly the same scenario as I mentioned. Prudential insurance company, Assurance IQ, large lead gen company, which now is shut down, but they sold, right? So the owner walked out through with a lot of money. So they sold for 2.3 billion. They were like lead gen company, and Prudential wanted to some customer acquisition engine, right? Then the next example, if you live in the UK, you may know a company called GoCompare. They sold for 790 million, right? Then, for example, in the US, you have a company like SelectQuote. They are doing 1.2 billion a year when I'm recording this video. So that's for our list. If you want to see detailed scoring, I will link the comparison sheet and everything I went through in the first comment of the video. And if you want to learn more about how it all works, hit subscribe and check insider.group, where I have more details and case studies on exactly how you can build a lead generation platform. See you in the next video.